We're rolling.
Welcome to the House Dudes podcast, where we invite you to follow us on our journey towards financial freedom using the power of real estate. I'm Jack Haas.
And I'm Josh Koth. Here at House Dudes, we believe in a couple key principles. Number one, the best way to retain information is by teaching it to others. And number two, a rising tide lifts all boats. We're not competitors, we're a community. So let's get into some real estate investing.
So we got Ryan Chaw on the line here tonight, and Ryan has kind of an interesting story in what's going on there. So Ryan, I'm just going to let you start things off and introduce yourself to everyone.
Hey, Jack. Thanks for inviting me on the podcast. So my name is Ryan Chaw. I graduated in 2015 as a pharmacist, so I work as a full-time pharmacist. And I wanted to do more with my life than just be that pharmacist who worked until they're 65 and finally retired. So I got into real estate investing. And real estate investing really was something that I was inspired by from my grandpa. He owned a couple properties in the Bay Area, and he was able, from that rental income, to pay for all of his expenses and retire early. And not only that, he was able to help pay for my tuition and my brother's tuition as well. So I realized that real estate investing is one of the best ways to create generational wealth. So I wanted to get started as soon as possible. I aggressively saved up for a down payment. 2016, I put down a down payment on my first house. It was a single family property, pretty cookie cutter property, 3-bed, 2-bath. And then I realized I could make a lot more money if I rented it out per bedroom rather than the whole house. So the estimated rent per the whole house was around $1,500 based off Zillow and Rentometer. But I realized I can actually get $2,500 if I charged around $600 per tenant. And so that's what I did. I just rented out to college students. And then I repeated this model year after year. I bought one property a year. Now I have 4 houses, 18 tenants, and that's making me $10,755 of rental income.
So this is kind of a really interesting concept, because you're actually, let's go where you actually do your investing too, because a lot of people shy away from your market because they haven't been able to get those numbers to work. So
exactly. So yeah, I mean, something I didn't mention, I invest in California, and this is one of the craziest markets. Houses in the San Francisco Bay Area are in the millions of dollars. Where I'm from in Sacramento, it's 500,000. But I found that, if I drove about an hour away to Stockton, the houses are in the $300,000 range, and then the numbers just make a lot more sense. I'm able to make the cash flow that I need to. In fact, I'm able to be positive in cash flow on 15-year mortgages. All of my houses are 15-year mortgages. So I'm guaranteed by the end of 15 years to have 6 figures coming in passive income. So it's pretty amazing, especially since I'm in California.
So, and you're doing this with all 4 properties right now.
Yeah. This with only 4 properties. I didn't have to go out and buy 100 deals or buy apartments and all of that or syndicate. I just, invested in single family homes.
Sure. So is there anything else outside, you say you have to go an hour and a half outside of town, and what was the name of the town again?
Oh, Stockton, California.
Stockton, California. Is there colleges and there's a community there that kind of supports this model?
Yeah, there's a couple colleges. Actually, California has a ton of colleges. This model could be repeated in different areas. I was also looking into Elk Grove, where the houses are, late, I would say $380,000 to $410,000 range. But, the numbers still could work out, because if you rent per bedroom, your cash flow is paying for your mortgage.
Right. Sure. So can you talk about a little bit about what drew you to those specific properties? Can you give us an example of let's break it down. You have one property, you got 4 bedrooms, 4 college kids living there. What does that scenario look like?
Yeah, good question. So I guess I was inspired by my friend first, who just house hacked in the college town where I was going to college, and he basically lived there for free because he was able to rent out the other bedrooms. Typical 15-year mortgage is around $2,300 per month on a $315,000 house in Stockton. And because I'm able to rent out per bedroom, I'm able to get more like $2,700 per month or $2,800 per month.
Right.
And, I don't only just rent out per bedroom. I also put in like multiple students in a bedroom. And so
Sure.
they'll share the bedroom and they'll pay a little bit, overall it's a little bit more rent. The other thing is I create extra bedrooms where I can. So I'll take like a living room or an extra family room, and I'll just, furnish it so it's like a bedroom, and I'll put in a door or potentially up a wall, like some drywall, and that'll be another bedroom. And then that increases my rent at $600 per month, right?
Sure.
So my last property, I have 5 students, and that's making me $3,100 per month. And it started out as a 3-bed, 2-bath, and I converted it to a 5-bed, 2-bath to make that $3,100 per month.
Sure. That's interesting. So, being an hour and a half away from you, I can't imagine do you do your property management yourself? I know that's only 4 properties, but how does that all work?
I do actually. I self-manage. So a lot of it is about automating and having systems and processes in place, right? So it doesn't require a lot of time from you. So one of the things I do, of course, is auto pay, right? I use the Zelle payment system as well, which is a direct deposit. And so I know exactly when they send the money, so I don't have to deal with like lost checks or whatever, checks that got lost in the mail, right? So I know if they're late and I could charge a late fee. I have a system for if something breaks down, right? The tenant will send me a text message. I'll forward it to my team of contractors. Each contractor has their own specialty area, and I'll just refer it to the proper contractor. And then they'll let themselves in because they know the electronic code on the front door, right?
So
and then they do their work,
door
they
locks.
go home and send me a check. Send me the bill, and I send them a check, and that's it.
Sure. That's an interesting process. Like that's pretty low, because a lot of people get burnt out from self-managing. And I know you have only the 4 properties, but it sounds like you really have kind of figured out a workflow there to kind of make things a little easier.
Yeah, I mean, I've been investing for over 4 years now, so I kind of have this system in place now that I can rely on that makes everything automated.
Sure. Have you tried to use any of those online solutions like Cozy or something similar?
Yeah, there's a lot of them out there. I haven't actually had to go use one of them yet.
Sure.
Most of it, is just something I kind of created.
Sure. No, that's kind of neat. So can you give us some tips and tricks since you've been managing these now for 4 years? What are some of the pitfalls and some of the things that you've been able to avoid?
Pitfalls. Well, I'll tell you actually my first mistake. When I bought my first house, it was a really old house. It was 100 years old. So I got a call from a tenant one day, and he was like, dude, there's sewage coming out of the sink onto the kitchen floor. So I was like, oh crap, what the heck? And this was at 11 p.m. at night. So you can imagine I called quite a few plumbers before I was finally able to find someone to go in and sanitize the place and clean up the mess and, fix the plumbing issue, right? And then they also had to put in a sump pump as well. And that whole process cost me a couple $1,000s. Not only that, when I stuck a snake camera down the sewage line, it found a lot of breaks in the pipe. It was rusted over. It was a cast iron pipe, so everything was rusted. There were roots sticking in. And so I had to replace the whole sewage line, I found out later, and it cost me $6,000 to do that. So I learned that doing your due diligence during the escrow phase to make sure, you buy a house where a house that's well maintained and everything's up to date is very key. So something I could have easily done is done the sewage line inspection, which only costs like $200, $300 during the escrow phase, and use that as a negotiation point at closing, right? Maybe they could cut me a check to replace the sewage line, or they could do the repairs themselves, right?
Right.
Or the seller could.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people lose sight of that you get a property under contract, whether it's off the MLS or if you're talking to that buyer directly, you still have that period of time to do some due diligence. And frankly, it's
Exactly.
another negotiation period.
Yeah,
So
that's really key.
let's go back to you. You said that your grandfather or father had rental properties?
Yeah, my grandpa actually had a couple properties in the Bay Area,
Sure.
and they funded his retirement, helped pay for some of my schooling, my brother's schooling as well.
Yeah. So, like, what lessons did you learn from him? I mean, there had to have been quite a few things that he passed down and tips and
Oh
tricks.
yeah, definitely. I would say the biggest thing is high quality tenants, because tenants, even though you get the perfect deal for the perfect price, tenants could make or break that deal, right?
Mhm.
If you get a tenant that you have to evict, then the lengthy eviction process that you have to deal with, and the headaches that come along with it, plus all the costs of that, that could really put a damper on your real estate dreams of having a good real estate portfolio, right?
Mhm.
So I found that college students, believe it or not, are one of the best quality tenants if you do the right targeting. So I look for third or fourth year college students or graduate students.
Mhm.
I really especially prioritize pharmacy students, dental students, and medical students
Mhm.
because they're more serious about getting their degree,
Mhm.
passing their classes and everything. So they don't want to put up with anyone who wants to, throw a wild party or something like that, right?
Oh, sure.
Um, Another big plus about college students is the parents help manage the property as well, because whenever they come by, they help clean up the place. They'll vacuum the floors, and they generally want their kid to stay in a nice place. And they're never going to pay late rent, or they're never going to not pay rent because they don't want their kid to be evicted from the place that they're staying at in
Mhm.
college, right?
Sure.
So, those are all the huge benefits of student rentals. And that's why I'm a very big advocate of getting into this market for everyone.
Sure. Do you have like any kind of drama issues with, you got four,
I,
six kids in this area that frankly, they may not even really know each other by the sounds of this. I mean,
yeah,
things can get kind of interesting, I'd guess.
that's true. There is sometimes drama. So I kind of created this a process for that too, right? So let's say one tenant complains about another, and I did have this. One tenant said, "Hey, this other guy, he's smoking pot, he's playing loud music, and I'm trying to do my studying, right?" So I was like, "Oh shoot, I better call the guy up." So I called him up, and then that tenant was like, "Hey, how do you know about this? Is the other guy just talking behind my back?" Right? And then so the situation escalated and got worse because now the tenants don't trust each other
Hmm.
because they think they're talking behind each other's backs, right?
Right.
So what I learned from this is, well, like when this issue came up in the future, I empower my tenants now to say, hey, you guys are adults now. You need to talk face to face with each other and see if you can resolve the issue, right? And then I kind of have a layout for them when they do talk to the other tenant, what they should say, and come up with an actionable plan that they both can agree upon to make sure that it doesn't become an issue in the future as well.
Sure.
So just by empowering the tenants, it really gets rid of a lot of the tenant complaints. And plus, I don't like being the middleman, right? I don't want
Mhm.
one guy calling me and say, hey, call up the other guy, and the other guy saying, hey, that's not right, I don't agree with that. And so I'm like, you know what, you guys can take responsibility and solve this issue because you guys are adults, right?
Right. So when you get a request for a repair, I keep coming back to the self-managed thing, and you
Mhm.
kick off the text or something to your preferred contractor. Now,
Mhm.
how do you keep track of all that? Is it just few and far between for properties? Maybe there isn't a lot of requests, or do you use some sort of system in order
Mhm.
for them to check it off the list or something for you?
Oh yeah, I mean, I definitely keep the proper paperwork and everything in place, but I would say in general, I don't have too many requests nowadays because what I do when I first buy the property, I do a lot of preventative maintenance to
Okay.
make sure the water heater's up to date, to make sure I trim the branches from the trees because the branches and all that could lead to pest control problems because squirrels and rats can climb the branches, get onto your roof and enter the house that way. And I actually had that problem before. So I learned to take out trees that are overhanging the house. I learned to take out grass too and replace with bark, because that cuts down a lot on the water bill and things like that. I would say another great thing is I swear by, I use a lot of drain cleaners, but I use this thing that really works well. It's called the Green Gobbler. I just pour down, or I have my tenants pour it down the drain twice a year. And then that got rid of all the plumbing issues. Like, I used to have a lot more plumbing issues, but after that, it dissolves all the hair and the fat, right, and the grease, right? So just doing those kind of preventative maintenance steps really go a long way in saving you repair costs and issues that might come up.
So do you just bring the chemicals over to their place like twice a year and say, hey, I need you to dump this down there and let it sit for so long?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I have like a tenant in charge of, that kind of stuff too. I'll sometimes have a tenant to kind of pay for the utility bills, and then he'll charge the other tenants for that. So, I don't have to do all the bookkeeping for utility bills, because, the utility bill will be under the tenant's name, and so they'll be in charge of the PG&E and then the the internet and all that. Yeah, exactly. So that's
you
another way.
Typically have one
person,
the one person that handles it, and then he divides up the bill to everybody else.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. So did you give anybody, like the person in charge, did you give them like any additional benefits or anything for taking that on?
Usually it's on a kind of a volunteer basis. I haven't actually provided like financial incentives. The only time I've provided like a financial incentive would be for referrals. Sometimes, at the end of the year, I'll say, hey, do you guys know anyone who might be interested in the property or staying at the house? And once that referral signs the lease, then I'll give the tenant who referred them $100 just as a referral fee. But I haven't really been having to do that as often nowadays, because there's so much demand. I would say there's like 4 tenants interested, like high quality tenants interested for every room I have. So nowadays, I don't even have to, do too much marketing.
Sure.
So there's just so much demand.
So when you do have to do marketing, how do you typically have found your tenants?
Facebook groups. So every college will have Facebook groups. So there's the textbook exchange group. There's the off-campus housing group. There's the class of 2022 or whatever. And then you just get onto these groups, and then you post your, for rent, right? For anyone interested in staying at a place near campus, 5-minute walk to campus, right? Or less. And, charge is a lot cheaper than on-campus housing, right? On-campus housing is more like $1,200 a month. And, they're getting a lot less privacy. They're having a shared, dormitory life, right? So I'm providing my place for $600 a month, which is like half the price. And they're getting a lot more privacy. They're getting a lot more room. And they're just as close to the classes as the on-campus housing.
Sure.
So it's been really great. Yeah, it's an amazing, I believe it's a blue ocean market.
Sure. What do you mean by that, blue ocean market?
Oh, blue ocean. So that basically means, for those who aren't aware of the term, it basically means a market that's untapped. Like it's like Uber, right? When there's the whole taxi service, right? But then Uber came in and disrupted that by creating a phone app that's convenient for users, and so that anyone could book a taxi anywhere across the world, right? And they put ordinary people into cars. And of course, everyone knows the story of Uber, but that's an example of a blue ocean market.
Sure. So you don't have any regulation, like in my market. I live on the river that divides Minnesota and North Dakota. So you probably, I don't know if you realize that, but in part of our market, you can't have, I want to say it's over 4 unrelated people living in the same house.
Right.
So those type of regulations that you have to deal with?
Exactly. So I actually do not, because what I do is I call up the local city housing and planning, commission, and I ask them, I want to do this, right? Is this legal? And what do I have to do to make sure it's legal? And they said, yeah, it's totally fine. To do this in your college town. You can even have multiple students in the bedroom. You could have multiple leases, as long as you have a business license with the city. So as long as the city gets their cut, basically, they
Right.
were okay with it. And then, I write down the name of the people I talk to, right? And you just got to do that due diligence to make sure that it's allowed in your local county or local city, right?
Sure. Sure.
But I would say most places in California actually do allow that.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
Have you like, since you're catering to college students, do you find that you have to provide some accommodations, that you're already dividing up these houses
Hmm.
and adding bedrooms where there traditionally wouldn't be, like, converting a living room to a bedroom or what
Yeah.
have you. But have you found that you have to attract certain people, you have to provide any kind of accommodations that wouldn't be traditional?
Oh yeah, definitely. So of course you want to make your place comfortable for your ideal customer or your ideal tenant, right? So for college tenants, they prefer convenience. So being close to the school, as close as you can, as possible, is a really big plus. Another big plus is having a fully furnished house. So I actually do provide all the furnishings.
Okay.
For every bedroom, I have a bed, desk, a chair, and a nightstand.
Sure.
So, all of that's provided and it's all tax deductible and everything, right? So once I set it up one time, then it's there pretty much for life or so, right?
Mhm.
I mean, of course things break down, but for the most part, yeah, if I provide the furnishing, that's a huge plus for a lot of the students. So they're willing to maybe pay a little bit more of a premium price just to have that stuff move in, rather than them having to buy a couple $100 queen size, a full size bed, right, to move into the property.
Sure.
Yeah.
But outside of that, how often do you have to replace the mattresses, and, like, how often do you have to turn some of that product? I
So I
mean,
try
some of that
to,
stuff is
yeah, that's a good
disposable.
question. I do try to buy the furniture from the previous owner if possible.
Hmm.
But if not, I will, like for the last two houses, I'll furnish every bedroom. And since I furnished it, I haven't had to replace it.
Sure.
We'll see in the future, but for the most part, I look for good quality pieces that I can put into the
Sure.
houses.
Are there any other things, like, we do have a few college rentals ourselves, and we kind of try to
Yeah.
college proof it a little bit. Remove all the
Right.
carpeting. We do more vinyl type flooring. That
Vinyl flooring. Yeah.
do you follow the same suit on that?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I try to replace carpeting sometimes with vinyl flooring, right? All that type of stuff, like you mentioned. Yeah.
Sure.
Mhm.
Well, we're probably coming to the end of our time here, but, like, I always end with, is there a question or something that you wanted to cover that I didn't ask about?
I guess the mindset piece is a
Sure.
big part of it. Yeah. So, I would recommend reading the book called Miracle Morning.
Hmm.
That's a really good one. It kind of goes over the type of mindset and how to be productive with your time, right? But to be a real estate investor, I really think it's like 80% mindset. You have to be able to deal with a lot of obstacles, and you might get some bills that are pretty hefty bills. They're a couple $1,000s, and it might make you want to quit because you're dealing with tenant headaches, or things break down and you're like, oh my gosh, I can't handle this, right? But as long as you have like that strong mindset and the systems and processes in place to or have like a model, right, for
Hmm.
investing, then that's how you become a successful real estate investor. In fact, all the successful real estate investors I've talked to, they said mindset's huge.
Hmm.
They spend a lot of time on developing a good, strong mindset.
No,
For
that's a really
Yeah,
good point. And I think what's really interesting about your story is that you had a grandfather who kind of been there, done that,
yeah,
and that probably helped a lot with your mindset right off the bat. But there's still something about still getting off that bench and doing it, and there does take some mindset and some encouraging on your part to get moving. I mean,
yeah.
So,
Exactly.
and that does, I'm going to pull you back into the conversation a little bit. It does. Was curious about, you are a full-time pharmacist, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of people believe that they have to do real estate investing full time in order to, do this.
Right.
But you're doing this as a part-time side hustle with relatively good, serious success. Like, how do you balance that, and it sounds like you've put all those processes in place to help with that, but
Yeah. I mean, one thing is scheduling out your time, right? So I
mhm.
block out some time that I spend on, analyzing deals, or I might spend it on some simple bookkeeping, right? To make sure, everything's profitable and everything's going according to plan. I spend some time meditating. I spend some time journaling every morning as well.
Mhm.
And so just doing all those exercises, especially time blocking, and make sure that you're very efficient with your time. You only put like an hour, and everything that you want should get done within this hour. So you don't have to be perfect, but you just need to get it done, right? So
Right.
just having that kind of mindset or that type of approach really helped me out.
So, and that's where the Miracle Morning comes into play.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I highly recommend that book for everyone, if you guys haven't read it yet.
Yeah. It's kind of funny. We use Office 365, and it's like there was a recent update or something. So every once in a while, it notices how many projects you have on your agenda, or how your calendar fills up, and
Yeah.
it said, like Monday, it sent me an email saying, do you have enough time to get all your projects done? Here are, and it actually said, here
Yeah.
are some times that haven't been filled on your calendar. Would you like to block them out now for
Oh,
focus?
wow.
So I
Yeah.
that was kind of a neat upgrade. That was kind of cool.
That's really cool. Yeah, technology nowadays, it's really making things convenient, and making us, helping us achieve our full potential.
Yeah. So I really appreciate your time, Ryan. This was a great conversation. I'm glad that you reached out, and if people wanted to get in touch with you or follow you on what you're up to, how do they do that?
Yeah, so I provide coaching services for those trying to shortcut the whole process. I provide my system, and my model, right? And I walk people through the whole deal analysis, renovations, the whole finding high quality tenants, marketing, and self-managing your property, while you're working your full-time job or whatever. And you can reach me at www.newbierealestateinvesting.com. That's www.newbierealestateinvesting.com. And newbie is spelled Newbie. And if you sign up for my email list, I have a lot of great resources for new investors just trying to get started.
So it's awesome. And I'll make sure to include that link in the show notes. But thanks again, Ryan, for being on the show.
Yeah, thanks again. It's an honor.
We've put a lot of effort into providing useful content, and if you found value in the show and have any interest in supporting us with a small donation, head over to patreon.com/housedudes.
And if you have any thoughts or questions, shoot us an email at info@housedudes.com. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter @housedudes. And if you like what you're hearing, head over to iTunes, subscribe, rate, and review the podcast. It really helps other investors out there find the show.
And remember, massive positive impact requires
massive positive action. We'll see you next time. This episode was brought to you by housedudes.com. Do you have time to actively manage flipping and rentals yourself? If so, go for it. If you live in a market that won't cash flow or don't have the time to do all the work, are you just out of luck? If there was a way to participate more passively, would that appeal to you? I'm sure you have questions about how the process works and what to do next. If that's the case, fill out the form on housedudes.com/investors, and we'll reach out to see if you are a good fit for our business. This is first come, first serve, and we will have to stop taking applications when our goals are met. See you at housedudes.com/investors.
I don't like like to tell a man what to do with his money, but if you ain't investing in property, then you're dumber than a dummy.
I'm not dumb. I'm smart.
Well, buy property. That's my advice.